Welcome everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you for joining me. If you're new to my channel and you haven't clicked the subscribe button, please do that and help support my channel, and as an added bonus you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music. Alright, with the recent releases by both Dokken, Lost Songs, which is an archival release, and Lynch Mob's Wicked Sensation Reimagined, both of these being archival sort of releases looking back at the band's early careers. There's a separate review on my channel for each one if you want to check out more on it. It really made me start looking back at George Lynch's career and all the different projects that he's been involved in over the years, and I thought that it'd be interesting to go back and look at his 42 studio album output. Now this is not counting live releases. I'm just gonna take a look at studio albums that he recorded, and found that there were 42 of them. And this covers 14 different bands as well as his solo stuff that he's done, that he's been involved in over the years. And it was pretty impressive to me. I know that he's always churned out a lot of stuff, multiple albums per year, but you know, seeing this was kind of eye-opening and everything. So I thought it'd be a cool thing to run through here. And so, you know, in the late 70s, George got his start, and he was playing in first band The Boys, and then Exciter. And the band Exciter actually had some demos that they had recorded, released in 2008 on the Wounded Bird label. I actually do have that album somewhere. I just couldn't find it. It's packed away somewhere. But he then later joins Dokken in 1980. And the first thing that they released is 1981's Breaking the Chains. This was actually done as a Don Dokken solo release. Again, there's a separate review for that on my channel if you're interested. And it was later remixed and partially re-recorded and then re-released in 1983 as this version, the one that we all know, you know, far more than, of course, that debut that was actually a German label release. And then followed by 1984's Tooth and Nail, which went platinum, and then 1985's Under Lock and Key, which also went platinum, and 1987's Back for the Attack, which is personally my favorite of all the Dokken albums. Now at that point in 1989, the band decided to go its separate ways, and they would reform though 5 years later in 1994. They kicked things off with a self-titled release in Japan that only had 9 tracks, and actually a different mix than what would come out, 1995's Dysfunctional. They added 2 additional tracks to that release there for it, in a slightly different mix. And then 1997's Shadow Life came out, and this one here has a much darker tone. It incorporated some of the grunge sounds that were going on at the time. And now I'm showing you this one here, even though this is a live release, the 2018 reunion album, so to speak, because there is a new studio track on it called It's Another Day. And so because that did have the new studio recording on it, as well as 2 additional acoustic tracks, I thought I'd include it in here just and show you that. But during Dokken's hiatus and prior to the reunion of you know, Dokken, George formed the Lynch Mob, and that band had a significant amount of releases over the years, kicking things off in 1990 with Wicked Sensation. You know, 30 years ago, or 30 years on, this band has been going on. That one there featured Ani Logan on vocals and was certified gold. Then they followed up in 1992 with the self-titled release, but this one here replaced Ani Logan with Robert Mason on vocals. And then in 1998, after the Dokken reunion, or shortly there at the end of it, he put out this 3-song EP. Not exactly sure how the title's pronounced, but it is spelled S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y, and it's a 3-song EP, and Ani Logan returns for that. But then in 1999, he does this full-length album here. I think it's essentially trying to reinvent the sound of the band, as it's a rap-rock hybrid. Very little to do connecting it to the original sound of Lynch Mob. It featured Kirk Harper on vocals. That release is called Smoke This. Fortunately, by 2003, he decided to do this called Revolution, and it was a re-recording of the hits. It featured both Lynch Mob and Dokken songs, and started out with Ani Logan in the project, but finished with Robert Mason doing the vocals on it. Pretty cool reinterpretation, pretty much along the lines of what you'd expect, but good to get that package together. Followed by 2009's first album of all new material, sounding in the original Dokken vein with Ani Logan on vocals. This is Smoke and Mirrors, a really solid effort here. And then in 2012, the Sound Mountain Sessions. This one's a really sort of bluesy, groovy, soulful effort. That was a 4-song EP. And then in 2013, they had Unplugged. It's an in-studio. It is live, but it's in-studio. It's without vocals on it, so I am including it here, and that's a 4-song EP. Followed by 2014, where they compiled 6 new songs. They had a cover song, and then those 4 songs from the Sound Mountain Sessions, all included here, remastered together, called Sunred Sun. And then in 2015, new album called Rebel, followed by 2017's The Brotherhood, which is now the last studio album by Lynch Mob of all new material. And of course, capping things off, what I was showing you at the beginning, the Wicked Sensation Reimagining, which is the first album re-recorded, reimagined, with the tracks reworked, and a much more accentuating of the groove and the funk of the tracks. But it's really interesting, and as I said, there's a separate review of that on the channel if you're interested. Now, in 1993, while Lynch Mob was on hiatus, George then started a solo career, and the first thing he did was 1993's Sacred Groove album. This one here being, of course, him solo, but having a number of guest vocalists on the record, and then there's some instrumental stuff on it as well. And then this one here called We'll Play for Food, which came out in 2000. This one at the time was a website only or internet only release, and a pretty cool thing here. It collected cover songs along with some unreleased Dokken and Lynch Mob tunes on it as well. And then in 2001, he did a project called Stonehouse, which featured Matt Kramer on vocals from Saigon Kick, another one of those ones that I have floating around here somewhere, but I couldn't dig up, so unfortunately I don't have it to show you. And that was a 3-song EP. Followed in 2002 by this one, The Lynch That Stole Riffness, another 3-song EP. This one had John Will on vocals, and as you can see, over the years, George has found a way to put out a lot of material, sometimes only EPs, but to really keep his name in the public. He certainly does that a lot with EPs and releases. There's a lot of other live things too that he's put out that, of course, I'm not covering here because they're not studio material. Next up, we've got 2004's Furious George album. This one is a collection of cover songs. It's on the Shrapnel Records label. This was a period of time when the cover album was really popular, and so Shrapnel Records label boss Mike Varney was putting together these collections and then essentially hiring famous guitar players to play them. There's ones out there for Jakey Lee and a number of other famous guitar players, Michael Schenker, etc. Stuff like that. Then we've got 2008's Hang 'em High. This one, of course, kind of sort of showing you the problematic use of the name Lynch Mob, which will come in a little bit later at the end, I'll talk about. That was an instrumental 3-song EP. Then in 2011, we've got Kill All Control, where he uses a guest vocalist on this album here. It actually features Mark Torin of the Bullet Boys singing on some tracks, which is really good. And then 2012, we've got Legacy, a 4-song instrumental EP. And then in between, of course, Dokken, Lynch Mob, his solo works, George has formed a number of other projects and side bands and things of that nature. And kicking this off, we've got 2003's Lynch Pilson, Wicked Underground, and of course that's George Lynch and Jeff Pilson, both of Dokken here. We've got Jeff Pilson singing on here, but at the time there's been a number of these projects where George has done things out of failed Dokken reunion attempts, and this here was one of them. And then next up we've got 2008's This was a new band at the time, Souls of We, Let the Truth Be Known. It featured London LeGrand on vocals from Brides of Destruction. That was a band that was put together by Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue and Tracy Guns of LA Guns, another interesting project that should be checked out. And then we had this, another failed Dokken reunion. Started out as Tooth and Nail, and they couldn't get the rights to the name, so unfortunately they had to go as TNN, and I really think that hurt the name recognition factor at least, and it just kind of sunk without a trace. This was, in 2012 called Slave to the Empire. It was all ex-Dokken members without Don, and then featured guest vocalists filling in for Don along with Jeff Pilson doing some of the singing. Next up we've got KXM, and they did 3 albums. This was the self-titled in 2014. And so the band, the KXM comes from the 3 band names. The K from Korn, the X from King's X, and the M from Lynch Mob, or the M part of Mob. And so it featured Doug Pinnick from King's X on vocals, Ray Luzier on drums from Korn, and then of course George from Lynch Mob. And then 2017 they put out their next album, which was Scatterbrain, and then 2019 they did a 3rd album. And not like George to do repeat albums with projects, so this is pretty cool that he's continuing this one on here. We're really getting to hear some good development by this group. That was Circle of Dolls. And then next up, we've got Shadow Train 2015. This is a cool double album soundtrack to the movie of the same name about Indian heritage and the issues that they've been dealing with, Native American population, I should say. And the band was all Native Americans and featured Greg Anala on vocals, doing a really great job, sounding a little bit like Ani Logan, at least in that vein. And then next up, he formed a band with Michael Sweet of Striper, and it was Sweet and Lynch. And this was the debut album that they did called Only to Rise, and came out in 2015, and followed in 2017 by the album Unified. Next up was a project that features Angelo Moore of Fishbone. Came out in 2016. I don't know if I'm going to say this name right. Project Infidelica, I think it's spelled, well, I'm not even going to try and spell it. It's just really, really crazy. If you look it up, you'll know what I mean. But I think it's pronounced Infidelica. Really good stuff, but very, very funky, more in the vein of the Fishbone stuff than anything that George has done. But another interesting project. Next up, we've got Ultraphonics, and this one here came out in 2018. It's called Original Human Music, and it features Corey Glover of Living Color on it. So you see he's always working with really interesting vocalists, usually some pretty big name people and stuff. Next up, we've got The End Machine. Here's another one that was a failed Dokken reunion. They tried to get Don involved. He didn't want to get involved, so they came up with a band name and put this out. But it's the 3 ex-Dokken members, this time featuring Robert Mason on vocals, of course, ex-Lynch Mob, but now in this lineup here. So if you do like the second Lynch Mob album, I think you're going to really enjoy The End Machine. All right, and then in 2020, his next project, Dirty Shirley. And this one here features Dino Jalusic on vocals from Animal Drive and Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Just a real new up-and-coming vocalist who's really, really powerful set of pipes that he's got. And so, running through all those, now here we are, 2020, with the news that George is retiring the Lynch Mob name due to its cultural insensitivity. Only George knows what he's going to do going forward, but I'm sure of one thing here. If we've learned anything from his catalog of releases, I don't think any project that he does going forward is going to be boring. It's certainly going to be really interesting. So I'm really looking forward to what it is that he will do going forward now that he's going to retire Lynch Mob. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this overview of George Lynch's 42 album career from his 14 different bands and solo projects. I'm sure I probably left some stuff out here. Feel free to drop me a line, let me know. Let me know which one was your favorite, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.